Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. And today we're talking all things Rollerball. We're talking the 1973 short story Rollerball Murder, written by William Harrison. We're talking 1975 movie Rollerball, starring James Cann, and we're talking about the 2002 remake directed by John McTiernan, the famous director of Die Hard. We are talking all things Rollerball, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But we're going to pay particular attention to the short story by William Harrison. And the reason we're going to pay particular attention to the short story is because, in a word, it is magnificent. It is a fantastic short story that William Harrison writes. So the short story, it's first published within the pages of Esquire magazine in 1973. And then in 1975, it gets reprinted in an anthology collection of William Harrison's short stories. And that anthology is titled Rollerball, and it includes his short story, Rollerball Murder, as well as 12 other short stories by William Harrison. And that 1975 anthology collection is timed to come out with and promote the 1975 movie Rollerball with James Cann, and vice versa. And to the best of my knowledge, that is the only printing of that book. I don't think it's ever been reprinted. Now, if you've never heard of William Harrison as an author before, that's not surprising here on this channel, because to the best of my knowledge, the best of my research, Rollerball Murder, that short story, is the only foray by William Harrison that he ever did into the world of speculative fiction, either fantasy or science fiction. It's the only short story, the only story he ever wrote dealing with speculative fiction. All of his other works, which were many, deal primarily with historical figures. And in fact, another one of his novels got turned into another movie called Mountains of the Moon that was all about Sir Richard Burton. And that movie, Mountains of the Moon, is a fantastic movie as well. William Harrison wrote a total of 11 novels in his lifetime. He passed away in 2013, and he was a terrific literary figure, a very accomplished writer. He worked at the University of Arkansas, and in 1966, he actually established the College of Fine Arts at the University of Arkansas. He is a very professional and a very talented writer, and that really comes through in his short story, Rollerball Murder. So, what is Rollerball about? If you're not familiar with the story, Rollerball is set in a near dystopian future in the year 2018, or approximately 2018. Yep, the far future of 2018. You got to remember this story was written back in 1973. And in this dystopian future, the old nation states have collapsed. The 1990s Asian wars have destroyed the old order, and a new order has risen up, and that new order is massive mega corporations that now rule the world. These corporate businesses have come to the forefront. They've taken the place of the nation states, and they have divided up the world in these corporations along economic market lines. So you have the energy corporation, the luxury corporation, the housing corporation, the foods corporation, and these are now the national powers in this dictatorial, tyrannical society that they run in this new society, in this new world order. And they provide the bread in order to keep the citizens happy with the bread, and then they also provide the circus, and the circus is rollerball. All other sports have been done away with. They've been outlawed. The only state-sponsored sport that is permitted is rollerball, and it is played inside of a velodrome that seats 80,000 people, and it is broadcast simultaneously across the globe to an audience of 2 billion people. Now, how does this game work? Rollerball is a mix of roller derby, motocross, bicycle racing, motorcycle racing, and American Gladiator all rolled into one. It is played in a velodrome. It is 50 yards on a side, 30 yards on an end, on a sloped track that comes up to a ramp that has a cannon in it. And the cannon fires out a 20-pound ebonite ball that comes out at speeds of 300 plus miles an hour and shoots around the top of the track like a ball in a roulette wheel until it eventually comes down when it loses momentum and comes down to the lower levels of the track. There are 2 teams that are on the track at this time of 20 players apiece. You have 10 skaters who are your grunts, your foot soldiers in this contest. You have 5 motorcycle riders or bikers, and then you have 5 runners or clubbers. And these are skaters that have a large net that they carry with them, kind of like a lacrosse stick, and they're the ones that scoop up that ebonite ball as it comes down and loses a little bit of velocity. When it gets down to speeds where they can scoop it up without having their arm torn off of their body. And once they get the ball, the runner has to get the ball to a motorcycle and grab the back handlebar on a motorbike. And then the motorbike needs to get him to the front of the pack and has to keep him in front of the pack for one lap around the track in order to score a point. And the other team can do anything to stop that runner with the ball, up to and including killing him. And this is Rollerball. This is the game for the story here in this dystopian future. So who are our main characters in this short story? Well, first and foremost, you have Jonathan E. Jonathan E. plays for Houston, and Houston is the capital city for the energy market conglomeration, the Energy Market Corporation. And Jonathan E. is, quite simply put, a legend in the sport of rollerball. He's the most famous rollerball player of all time because he's been there for 15 seasons. And nobody plays 15 seasons of rollerball without getting horrifically maimed, crippled, or killed. And so this has made him an absolute legend in the game, and he is our main protagonist. In addition to Jonathan, his antagonist or his counterpoint in this story is Bartholomew, and Bartholomew is the head of the Energy Corporation. He is the president of this globe-spanning corporate nation, and he is the owner of the Houston Rollerball team. In addition to that, you've got Moonpie, who is one of Jonathan E.'s teammates at Houston, and you have Ella, who is his former wife, who was steered to him by the corporation and taken away from him by the corporation as well. And then the final main character in this short story is Cletus. Cletus is a former player. He is a consultant and a friend of Jonathan E. They're on the Houston team. And most importantly to this story, Cletus is a judge on the International Rules Committee for Rollerball. And that's going to play a significant part in the story. The story itself picks up with Jonathan E. in his 15th season, which is incredible for rollerball. And as they're going forward and having these rollerball tournaments, and there's a total of 3 of them here in the short story, the rules keep changing. Cletus keeps coming to Jonathan and informing him about the rules committee, the judges, trying to make changes to the game to make the game even more and more dangerous. And that is sort of the topographical plot that you have going on. You have this visceral, hard-hitting, kinetic rollerball tournaments that are interspersed throughout this short story, and the backdrop of these rules changes that are making the game more and more dangerous for Jonathan to keep playing in. But underneath that, or in the interludes in between these tournaments, you have this dysfunctional love story between Jonathan and Ella that is wonderfully written. And underneath that, like an undercurrent underneath the surface that's not completely visible, but it's there pulling everything forward, you have this political intrigue plot. You have this plot of a tyrannical political power and an individual's resistance to that power. And this is actually the real theme and the real plot of the short story, but it is written very, very subtly by William Harrison, in stark contrast to just the absolute kinetic energy and brute force that he writes for the contest, the rollerball tournament contest that he has in his short story. You have this subtle as a whisper political intrigue plot running underneath all of it. And it is so subtle that you could actually finish the story and miss it completely, because you have to pick it out. And all the pieces are there. William Harrison has put everything in there to build this plot. It's all right there, but you have to pick it out. He's not going to hold your hand. And it is the main theme of the plot. And it's wonderful just how subtly he writes it in there. Like I said, it's as subtle as a whisper. And it's what makes this story so beautiful. And it has that stark contrast to just the brutality and the writing that William Harrison does in order to convey the brutality of these rollerball tournaments. William Harrison's writing in this story is fantastic. His pacing and his rhythm and his construction of his sentences make it in parts almost lyrical in spots. You get these very short, clipped, abrupt, hard-hitting sentences when he's talking about the rollerball tournaments themselves. And then you get these long sort of philosophical interludes where Jonathan E. is questioning the system. He's dealing with his ex-wife, and the political machinations are going on in the background. And it's really, really well done. It is, in short, an absolute masterwork. It is a tour de force of short-form science fiction that's just stupendous, and I do give it my highest recommendation. And he puts it all into a short story consisting entirely of 16 pages. Yes, this is all packed into a short story of only 16 pages, but it doesn't feel shoehorned in. William Harrison's writing is so efficient and so effective. His word choices are so concise and so perfect, and how he has picked out his words and laid out his sentences and constructed his paragraphs and telling the story, that it does move forward with quite a bit of alacrity, but it never feels cramped. It never feels pushed in together or like he's stuffed too much into too short of a story. It works absolutely perfectly, and I do recommend it with my highest recommendation. So that is the short story. Where can you read it? And this is where it gets a little bit difficult. The book Rollerball, that anthology that I was talking about, they're selling it on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. It sells for $75 on Amazon, and that is the cheapest place that I can find where you could buy it. From there, it goes up into the hundreds of dollars to get a copy of that book, and I'm not going to do that. There is no Kindle version that I could find. There is no other e-version of the book that I could find that you could download either. So how did I read this story? I got it off of the Internet Archive. So the Internet Archive, it's a legitimate business. It's located in San Francisco. I think they converted a bank in downtown San Francisco in order to become a data haven. They have attorneys. They have fended off all copyright claims that have been filed against them, and they upload material. They let people upload any material into this data haven as long as it is not overtly criminal. Now, you do have to register an email address with them in order to read the stories or have an account there, which is what I did. But you can read Rollerball Murder. You can read all the Rollerball stories there on the Internet Archive. If anybody's got any experience with the Internet Archive that they want to share, please put it down in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. But that's how I read the story. So, on to the movie. 1975, Rollerball, James Cann, big Hollywood production. I saw it on TV a couple of years later when it was broadcast on one of the main networks. I think it was NBC, like 2 years after it came out in the movie theater. It was straight up rated R. I was not going to it back when I was in elementary school. My parents weren't going to let me, but it came on TV. We watched it. And after I read the story, I had to go out. I had to get the movie again. I just got the movie. I got it from my local library. I watched the whole movie of Rollerball from 1975. And then I watched back-to-back the 2002 remake by John McTiernan. The 1975 movie. The Rollerball sequences are fantastic. They're wonderfully done. They went over to Germany, I think it was Munich, and they took one of the buildings from the Olympics that they were using there in Munich. They converted it and actually made a rollerball velodrome, and then brought professional athletes in, football players and wrestlers, in order to play the parts of these athletes in this rollerball contest. And they set it up and they filmed it, and there's no CGI, there's no special effects. They're just filming the action on this rollerball velodrome, and it's fantastically shot. The action in there really, really meets up and meets the expectations and the writings by William Harrison in the short story. Speaking of William Harrison, the screenplay for the movie is written by William Harrison. So when you're watching the 1975 movie Rollerball with James Cann, you're essentially watching what William Harrison would have converted that short story into as a novel if he had expanded it out and made it novel length. You're getting it there in that 1975 movie because William Harrison's got the screenplay. And the Rollerball, the action segments of it are wonderfully done. They're fantastic. It's what makes that movie, frankly, worthwhile watching. Unfortunately, the interludes, these very lengthy interludes between the rollerball matches, they get a bit pretentious. They get a bit drawn out. The movie does take that semi-hidden political aspect of the short story and brings it up to the forefront. It puts it front and center. It doesn't hide it at all. And that does take up quite a bit of these interludes between the matches. The problem is that it gets a little too avant-garde. They got a little too artistic with it, a little too artsy-fartsy, to be frank. And it gets a little pretentious. It's kind of self-indulgent. And it drags out, and it becomes a bit of a boat anchor on the rest of the movie. It could have been really well done. I thought if they had honed in and just made sort of a political thriller intrigue and build up that political suspense as that story, as that political resistance story goes forward, that would have been very interesting and leaned a little bit more heavily into this dysfunctional relationship between Jonathan E. and his former corporate wife, Ella, that they could have had a very, very good movie. Unfortunately, those long, lengthy interludes, being pretentious and self-indulgent, they do drag the movie down a bit, and it gets a bit bizarre, to be quite honest. Now, James Cann turns in a solid performance here in this movie, but the supporting cast turns in some phenomenal performances. You have some really good performances. Bartholomew is played by John Houseman, and he turns in just a great performance. And Cletus is played by Moses Gunn, and Moses Gunn just knocks it out of the park. He has a great performance as well. So if you've never seen the movie, I would recommend going and watching it just so you can watch the action sequences and see how bizarre it gets in these downtimes, in these interlude periods between the matches. The other good thing about the 1975 movie version is you get the full match. You get the full World Championship match at the end of the movie there between New York and Houston. In the short story, you don't get that. You just get the start of that match, and then the short story ends at that point. But here, William Harrison has fully detailed out all of the blow-by-blow of that match, how it plays out. And at the same time, William Harrison brings together the dramatic conclusion of the political side of his story as well. And you get that come to a head as the match comes to a head. And the end of the movie there in 1975 with James Cann is actually really well done. For that, it's worth watching once for that, just to say that you've watched it. If you've seen that movie, I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are on that 1975 Rollerball movie. How did it work as a total movie? How did it work between the political parts of it, the social aspects of it, versus the sport aspect of that movie? Oh, one other thing about that, when they set up that velodrome in there in Munich and set it up so you could actually run these rollerball shots and scenes for the filming, the crew was so taken with how good this game was that between filming, they would get out on the track and they would play rollerball because it was so much of a fun game to play that they got into it, and they were running their own rollerball games in between shootings with the camera for the movie. So that's 1975 Rollerball. That brings us to the 2002 remake directed by John McTiernan, which I watched back to back right after I finished the James Cann 1975 version. So the 2002 remake by John McTiernan, it is hot garbage. It is a disaster of a movie. It is a completely dysfunctional movie. It's so disjointed, you can't follow what's going on, particularly during the rollerball scenes. You can't tell how the track is set up. The track has ramps where people can go jumping up in the air like a motocross, bike course, obstacle course. You've got tubes that people can go through, and you can't get a feel for what the heck is going on this track. The story is set in modern times. John McTiernan and the screenwriter for the 2002, they completely jettison anything dealing with the story by William Harrison from 1973 or the screenplay. It bears almost no resemblance to the short story at all. So it's set in modern times, and it is at this time he has built it as an underground sport, kind of like the Kumite and Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's what they've turned it into. They've turned it into the Kumite. They've set it in Kazakhstan, where they've set up these illegal underground rollerball tournaments. The whole thing is run by syndicated criminals, criminal syndicates that then broadcast these games out on the dark web in order to generate illegal gambling revenue. And it is an absolute hot mess. Whereas the 1975 movie hired professional football players and wrestlers to come in to give you like a realistic feel of the athletes out here on those rollerball tournaments that made it seem very real, very visceral. And the 2002 remake, it seems like they went out and just hired a bunch of Benetton models to stick on the motorcycles and put into these inline roller skates that they've got them in. And then they had Barnum and Bailey's three-ring circus come in and design the outfits that they were wearing as they were going around this track with this idiotic plot. And yet, it is oddly entertaining. It is so bad, it's like a train wreck that you can't look away from, that it actually holds your attention, that it's so bizarre, it's so off the wall, it's so poorly done, that it actually becomes entertaining in its own right. And in an odd way, it might even be easier to watch than the 1975 James Cann version. But that's my take on it. If you've watched the 2002 version, if you watched the 1975 version, what do you think of those two movies? Have you read Rollerball, the short story by William Harrison, that 16-page magnificent short story? What did you think about that? Put it down in the comments section. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. And with that, I'm going to have to wrap this one up. And I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.